Hey everybody, welcome to another meeting of the Research Triangle PowerShell User Group. My name is Mike Kanakis, and I'd like to welcome in my co-host and also co-MVP, Phil Bossman. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Today we are joining you from Tech Systems in North Carolina with the world's largest conference room table. We decided to set up on the opposite side of the room, which is not conducive to video, so we figured we'd come down here, give you a little wave, and say hello. Tonight, we have a very special guest joining us, a longtime friend of the group. I'm going to introduce him in 1 second, but I have a question for Phil. Who nominated you the Microsoft MVP? Do you remember?
I think that was you.
Me? Me?
Yes.
Shit. Okay.
Gotta edit that out now. Thanks a lot.
Hey, Phil, who nominated you the Microsoft MVP?
I think you did.
Oh, wow, look at that. Do you know who nominated me?
I do not know. Who's that?
It happens to be our guest tonight.
Wow.
Yes, so we'd like to welcome in our guest tonight. I'm going to click my heels, click, 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 and see if we can raise Josh King, who lives in the future, if he could join us. Hey, Josh, are you out there?
I am.
I am there. So Josh already hates this. Yes, he already has had enough of my antics. I said I wasn't going to say that tonight, but I did. I said hello from the future. In case anybody is not familiar with the group, Josh King, longtime friend of the Research Triangle PowerShell User Group and longtime community contributor, and also a personal friend of ours. We've gotten to hang out with him a bunch of times,
Yes.
considering he is halfway across the world from us and in the future as far as time zones. And for 7 years, Josh has been coming to meetings and listening to me say hello from the future, and the look on his face every time is like, God damn, how long are you going to do that joke, Mike? And I still do it 7 years, and he never complains. So first of all, I want to thank you for joining us tonight and being a super great friend of the group. But tonight,
I wanted to talk about what he's been talking about.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He's been in the industry for so long, and he's even had a product actually in the community for quite many years.
Yeah. And it's a tool. It's a tool, right? And a tool that is super useful, really can help people do some cool stuff on their clients and servers, keep them up on what's going on. So why don't you tell us what that tool is then?
Well, it's one of these things where, you look at it and going, what is this? I certainly will let him talk about it. It's called this burnt toast thing. Like, yeah. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
But not too many people understand that little pop-up message that like comes up and then it goes away. And it's just like a piece of toast coming back and forth. And that's the actual formal term for that notification. So if you weren't aware, that notification is actually called a toast notification. And so our, great speaker tonight will be talking about a PowerShell module that he put together called
Hold on.
BurntToast.
Is that really true? Why it's called a toast notification?
Yeah.
I never knew
because
that.
it pops up. Yeah.
It pops up and then goes away.
Well, that is so cool. Well, I didn't know that. I just use the stuff. I don't actually know what the hell I'm doing.
I just think the people in New Zealand, they like bread. Yeah, toast. That's a good idea.
So, hey, we're super happy to have Josh here. Josh, first of all, what time is it where you are? Let's do the good stuff.
It is coming up on 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Tomorrow, so that would be August 21st. It is now 6:45, August 20th, where we are. So he is truly from the future, and he does not have the lottery numbers, unfortunately. Josh, you've made an awesome tool that you've been developing over the years. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. Well, shall I just dive into it? Because that's sort of part of the presentation.
That's up to you. What I would like to know before you dive into it, though, is for the people that may not have met you prior, a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your role in the community, and then dive into your tool. That would be a
Sure.
good intro.
So, so my name's Josh King. The tool that we're talking about is BurntToast. I've been working on that for exactly 10 years now, just over 10 years. And so I guess I've been a member of the PowerShell community for at least 10 years at this point. I didn't think to quantify how far before that. I currently work at Chocolatey Software. Been there 4 years. Previously an MVP.
MVP.
Yeah.
You donate a lot of time to the community. You're very active. You're a writer. You've done lots of different things. The guy's been around, seen a lot.
Yes, you remember more than I remember.
Cloud does lots of cool stuff, right?
Yes.
See, I know a little bit about it.
There you go.
Yeah. So we're going to turn it over. We're going to turn it over to Josh. He's going to basically do sort of a history of BurntToast, I believe, and talk about some of the cool things that are coming in the near future to celebrate its release of version 1.0, correct?
Yep, exactly that.
So while Josh gets ready, we're going to walk about 180 feet back. We will hand it over to Josh. All right.
I get rid of that thing. There we go. Alrighty. Is that coming through on your end?
Yes.
Screen share? Awesome. Yeah, so BurntToast. Just released version 1. And that I managed to line up releasing that with it being exactly a decade after the original release of it. So that's what we're talking about today. And just in time, got a special delivery. Toast. So, already talked about myself, but here's the slide. I am a senior infrastructure ops engineer at Chocolatey, former Microsoft MVP. I occasionally blog, though it had been a couple of years before I announced this V1, on toastit.dev and on Blue Sky at that same address. So I've been doing this toast thing for so long that it's sort of almost become my identity. So this is a toast. My daughter just dropped off some Marmite toast to me. But that's not the sort of toast we're talking about. Instead, we're talking about these. So these are those timely, actionable notifications that come up on basically every operating system, some websites, etc. So these are examples of toast notification on Mac OS, Android, Windows. This will be Windows 10 from the looks of it. So yeah, as we sort of mentioned in that intro, they're called a toast because they pop up and show you the information and then disappear. But Microsoft's doing away with that terminology. So they've got a banner in their docs now which basically says the term toast notification, they're replacing it with app notification. So I'm going to cling to toast like I still call Twitter rather than X. So for me, there'll always be toast notifications, but just be aware, Microsoft is trying to change the term on us. So BurntToast. It is a PowerShell module that I put together, obviously 10 years ago at this point, and it's for displaying toast notifications on Windows 10, Server 2019, and above. So it does work on Windows 11, it does work on Server 2022 and 2025. And a couple of days ago when I took the screenshot, we had hit 26.5 million downloads of the module on the PowerShell gallery. And of those, over 200,000 of those was of the latest release, which was cool to see. So there's no telemetry or anything in the module, so I don't actually know where it's being used or why that many downloads are happening so quickly. But it is what it is. Evidently,
because it's cool and it's worth it.
I have to imagine there's some big organization somewhere that are using it on a lot of computers. So yeah, I would love to find out specifics. I have heard things through the grapevine that I can't obviously mention publicly, but yeah, it's evidently getting used. So I'm really grateful for all the traction it picked up. But as for what BurntToast actually does, so behind the scenes, a toast notification in Windows is an XML payload. And that XML document describes the content of the toast notification. So like all the text on it, any images that are on it, all that sort of stuff. That XML Windows API, and you get a toast notification. You could, if you really wanted to, write that XML yourself and submit it to the Windows Notifications API and get your toast notification, and that all would just work. But no one wants to voluntarily be working with XML. So effectively, BurntToast is generating that XML for you in a schema, in a method that you're used to with any PowerShell modules that you're using. The regular way of using it would be to have BurntToast installed everywhere that you want to display a toast notification, and then you just run your script that generates the notification. What you could also do is just use BurntToast to author your notifications, and then take that XML that it has generated and drop that onto, use that to trigger the notifications on remote machines, so that you don't actually have to put BurntToast everywhere if you don't want to. I had a link to that. There's a blog post about that on toastit.dev. It's there. You can search for it. So a bit of history. BurntToast started in response to a Reddit thread where someone had asked a question about using PowerShell to do toast notifications. And I read that question, and it got me on a train of thought that I just couldn't hop off of until I ended up 10 years ago. Started leading to, so that original release, because I'd done some iterations of it locally, the first version I've released was version 0.3. Excuse me. And that was released on the 27th of July 2015, and it got a whopping 127 downloads. Is it choppy?
I don't know if it's currently the room, but I was asking just in chat. So
okay.
I just wanted to
okay. Off and on. Okay. If the audio drops out, let me know and I'll restate. And then so on the 22nd of July this year, I released 1.0.0, and then released a couple of patches after that, because of course it's impossible to release something that doesn't have any bugs in it. So very quickly found some things to fix up. So the main thing that was changed in version 1 is now that we have actionable toast notifications that are easy to use regardless of which version of PowerShell you're running. So toast notifications can display information, but you can also use them to get feedback from the user. And in previous versions of BurntToast, this worked in a specific version of PowerShell Core, but not Windows PowerShell. So what version 1 has enabled is now everything from Windows PowerShell through all the versions of PowerShell Core, which is PowerShell, I guess, at this point, can have these actionable toast notifications. So figure, let's just have a look at them. Right. So I've got a bunch of demos to walk through. I don't actually want that one open. There we go. Cool. So the default, well, first of all, I guess, BurntToast is on the PowerShell gallery, so you can install it. just like you can any other PowerShell module. Just install -module BurntToast, and it'll pull it down for you. But once it's installed, the main function to use on there is BurntToast, and if you just run that, you'll get the default notification that we've sort of landed on for BurntToast. So this shows a picture of some burnt toast and just default text. One thing is the Windows, what's the word I'm looking for? Attributes the toast notification to the program that called it or generated it. So I'm using Windows PowerShell here mainly because I want to show that the actions, the event stuff works in Windows PowerShell. So it's showing up as Windows PowerShell there. And if I were to, grab the ISE, go BurntToast notification in here, it shows .ise. So that's just automatic. It picks it automatically, attributes it to whatever host you're running in. So if it's PowerShell core,
right?
Yes, but there's some hoops to jump through.
Okay. So all right, I'll let you get to there, but just to lead into that topic.
So you can customize that. So that's a spoiler. So one of the first things that I've thought of for toast notifications that would be useful, or a useful use case for toast notifications, is, say you've got a script, it's going to take like an hour to run, but you need to know when it's finished. So it's not like I'll just check on it in 2 or 3 hours, and if it's done, I'll keep working. No, I need to know exactly when it's actually done. So you can just pop a toast notification at the bottom of the script, and it will fire off when the notification's finished. When the script is finished. So here I'm using splatting to not have my lines be too long. So for example, where text is there in the hash table, of course you can go text, add it in there. So here we've got 2 strings. The first one is going to be the header of what displays on the notification, and then there's this text showing the body. Replaces that circle where I've had the picture of burnt toast before, the default picture. And then we can also change the sound. So this is there's a set list of sounds that you can have, which standard Windows sounds. Unfortunately, you used to be able to just point to a WAV file, and it would use that, but that got removed in the Windows API at some point. Unfortunately, we can't just do that anymore. So you can choose from any of this list. And if we run this one, so I'm not sure if the sound's coming through, but that should have sounded different than the default notification.
Yep, I heard it.
Awesome, cool. And you can see the images come through and all that text that we've mentioned above. So that's there. And also, if we let that disappear, there we go. We will also see it in the Action Center. Oh, that one's a spoiler too. So if you don't click on a toast notification and just let it disappear, it goes into this. They've sort of gotten rid of the name of it, but the Action Center, where it saves all of the notifications that you've missed. So clear those, they'll disappear. Cool. Right. So then the next use case, let me click through these in order so that they're actually There we go. So another use case is an alarm. Just say you need a reminder for something. What you can do is, so we've still got text again. We're replacing the app logo again, which is, again, that picture that shows. This time I'm using a GIF because we can put animated images in there. And there's two things new here. When you use an alarm or a call sound, excuse me, what will happen is rather than just playing once, it's going to loop. And it will automatically stay on the screen for a bit longer as well. And then you can also specify snooze and dismiss. So this is going to put some buttons and a drop-down list on the notification that allows the user to snooze the notification so that it comes back up at a given time. So if we run this one. No, come back. I didn't think this part through. I need to talk over the thing. So drop-down list, you could say snooze that for a day. It will come back up in a day's time. I'm not going to do that because then it'll happen tomorrow and while I'm working and I won't remember that I did it. I'll be. That's system managed, so you literally just say, I want snooze and dismiss, and Windows just handles it for you.
So there's also a way to actually get that call back and figure out what number they clicked back on, whether they acknowledged it or not?
Yes. I should look into that. So yes, in general, if you can. I haven't done it with a snooze and dismiss button before, though, the system managed ones. Yes.
All right, 2.0.
New in version 1 is this concept of an urgent notification. And these were added to Windows. I don't keep up on my releases like I used to. But if we go into system, notification, and then there's priority notifications. So these are notifications that are allowed to break through your do not disturb or focus assist, they used to call it. And also it slightly changes the UI of them. So if you set the urgent switch, and then we run that, you'll see so what it's added is next to where it's telling you what application generated the notification, it's now got this red exclamation mark on it. And that's to tell you that it was an urgent or important notification. So I obviously don't have do not disturb turned on at the moment because I sort of need these notifications to pop up while I'm trying to demo the notifications. But if I had it through, it would still show me. So it's one way of going, okay, I don't care about Slack, I don't care about Teams, but I do want my scripts to still break through and tell me when they're done. And yeah, like I say, that's v1. And then you can start doing things with adding buttons. So this is starting to get into that, okay, I can show my user stuff. Now I want them to be able to do stuff. So on a button, you can provide a string that's going to display on the button. And then there's a concept called arguments. So this is what Windows is going to take and try and perform an action based on that argument. Now, if you give it a URI, that being either a website address or, say, a path to a file, it's going to take that and try and open it in whatever the default application for that is. So if you were, say you had a script that generates a PDF file, you could put the path that that PDF file was saved to as the argument for a button. And then when the user clicks the button on the toast notification, it would open that PDF in whatever your default PDF reader is. Or was there a question? Okay. So if we run this one, what we should see is Toast telling us there's something new on the internet and we need to go click Google to find the thing. So in this case, if we click the Google button, it's going to open up in the background for me. That's cool. So it opened that URL for me in the background. Sorry, it opened that URL in my default browser, which at the moment is set to Firefox. So yeah, like I say, so if I were to point to a text file, it would open the text file in Notepad or Notepad++, depending on what I had my default set to. It can't, you can't give it an executable and try and get it to run the executable. So this has to be a path to something that that Windows can then run a default app for. In our browser.
You need to report that.
And also,
Can you turn off your video?
Sorry, what was that?
Maybe try that. Maybe try reducing your input, and then
there we go.
Yeah, we'll try that.
If it's still a bit choppy, I'll try resharing without sharing sound as well, desktop sound, because that may help. Because I don't think we actually need to hear the notifications. So what I'm doing here as well is putting an icon on the buttons. Could you give it a path to a PS1 file? You could, but what that's going to do is the same as if you were to just double click sorry, there was a question in chat. Could you give it a path to a PS1 file? And you could, but it would open it up. Say, for example, when I double click a PowerShell script in Explorer, it's going to open that in Notepad so that I can edit it. So it's not going to run the script. Right, sorry. So this one adds an icon to the buttons. So run that. So now we can choose our favorite search engine, which isn't Bing, but I'm going to click Bing anyway because we've already done Google. Of course, it opens in the background again. So now we've got Bing. Now, another thing that's new in V1 is we can now give buttons color. But unfortunately, there's only a choice of 2 colors, other than the default gray. So we can make a button green or we can make a button red. Behind the scenes, they're actually success or failure buttons, or success or critical, or something like that. So for this one, we've got some news. Do we want the good news or the bad news first? We run that. We've got our 2 buttons. Another button. So if we had a 3rd button that didn't have a color specified, so yeah, those are our 3 options. We've got the default gray, we've got red, and we've got green. So we can play around with those now. Right. Now, other than just text, you can also do things like put progress bars on the toasts. And one of the use cases for this that I love going back to is something that would have been helpful for my help desk days, which was alerting me about tone levels. So we can generate progress bars with a new progress bar, a new BT progress bar function, and pass that in, and they will stack up in the order that we specify them in. So we can see, getting distracted by my own sounds, but we can see, I'm going to get rid of that. But we can see that, there we go. We can see a progress bar for each of those toners that would be in the printer. Now that's all well and good for a static snapshot of some information, but a lot of the time when you're using progress bars, it's tracking towards something being finished. So there's two options. Placing the notification. So if you give a notification a unique identifier and then send a new notification with that same identifier, what it's going to do is replace the one that's already there. So how that looks, for this, there's going to be 3 examples. So the thing you're looking for is first, second, or third, just to see which one's currently active. If we run that first one, we can see this is the first line, the first example. If we run the second one while it's still on screen, you can see it disappears instantly and a new one comes in. And then if we allow that to go off screen, so again, this has gone into the action center. If we run the third one, it re-addresses, or it re-notifies. So this isn't the best user experience for rapidly updating information, because it'll be like, you can imagine if you're updating it every second with updated information, that's going to cause some complaints. So where that is good though, is if it's an infrequent update and you always want the user to see that updated information. The other option is to actually update the existing notification. So rather than doing a new notification, you can update the existing update an already existing notification. So in this case, what we can do is fire this one. If I hit the run button instead of the run point button, and then while it's on screen, if I run the next one, you can see that it's seamlessly updated that text without re-notifying. And then if we let it disappear and we run the third one, you can see the output from the function says it's succeeded. So it did update the notification, but we didn't get a new one on screen. And what we'll see in the Action Center is that it has updated to the third notification, the third example. So that one's great for rapid updates of especially progress bars, because you can, every second give it an update and get that real-time feedback.
Scroll up. Yep. The ID is just the word. It is just referencing the unique ID of that.
Yes. Yep. So the difference here that makes this work is it uses this concept called data bindings. And what this does is it puts a placeholder. So in that XML that's been generated, it's basically creating a placeholder that you can then go and say, for this placeholder, put this bit of text in here. And then you can replace what's going into that placeholder. So that works for things like this, where we're updating a notification, but it can also be used for localization. So you can have a placeholder that says toast title or something, and then you can say, okay, if this one's English, put this title in there. If their locale is Spain, then put the Spanish version of that in there. Or you could do things like addressing a specific floor of a multi-level building or something without having to actually change the XML. It's getting hot in here. I have to turn off my heater. Yeah, so that one's, what's that one's for? And actually, I might skip to 12 because that's probably, this one looks a little daunting, so I'm not going to talk about it, but it's more of a demonstration of what you can do with a rapidly updated toast. So all of this code is going to be available later on. So if you are interested in seeing how this particular example works, I would encourage you to go and dig into it. But if we run all of this, make sure I hit the right key. We've now got this toast that has two progress bars that are being updated quite rapidly. So it's going to sit there for the function in the background that's running. It's going to run for a total of 60 seconds, I think, before that gets to 100%.
You can do that in like a modal window and keep your PowerShell window somewhere else. Like you can do that in a.
So you need to keep that PowerShell process running, but that doesn't have to stay on the screen. So what I'm hoping is it sort of disappears soonish. I may have tweaked it by mousing over it, but it does also, yeah, there we go. So it does still update in real time in the notification. So in the background, it'll still be there as well. And there we go, it's finished.
You're effectively still updating that particular toast notification because you reference the direct ID and you reference the data, you're updating the data binding. So
yes,
you can update it. But at that point, you could, kind of run this as a secondary script, throw it off the screen. You could, could you do it in a separate like run space and like in a?
As long as it's in the same user context with that same ID, you'll be able to update it. So when I said you need to keep that PowerShell process running, that's just for this particular script because it's doing a for loop and orchestrating all of that. But if you wanted to, you could have a script that triggers the thing, and then it exits the PowerShell process, and then 30 seconds later another script fires and it updates that toast. Just as long as it's running in that same user context with the same ID, it'll be able to do it because it's the Windows API that's handling the notifications themselves. There's no sort of state necessarily that the PowerShell process itself is keeping.
Are you going to get to the idea of like doing it from like a separate process? Like, could you have like, I'm thinking like a scheduled task?
Yep. So that's an interesting one. So the key there is that scheduled task has to run as the user that you want to see, to see the notification. So you can't like run the scheduled task as system and just pop the toast because there's no desktop under system to show the notification on. But if you were to go into the scheduled task and go run as blah, then yeah, it works. And it's a little bit beyond this as well, but that's one way of doing remote notifications as well, is if you can drop if you can manage scheduled tasks on a remote machine, then you can set that to run the script that does the notification at, say, 30 seconds in the future or something, and then it pops up for them. So that is that one. Now, events. So this is where we start getting into the cool stuff in PowerShell, BurntToast version 1 that's new. Insofar as it now works in Windows PowerShell. So here, I've just stripped everything back to basics. We've got, we're just sending a default notification, but then we're telling it when the toast is activated, run this script block. Now, this script block is just a PowerShell script block. It could be anything. So in this case, it's just writing a warning saying, hey, it's been activated. So if we run that, and I click the toast, we get a warning popping up. Now, the thing to know about this is what this is doing is it's registering a event, what's called an event subscription in this PowerShell session, and it's not actually specific to this notification. So if I were to just run new BurntToast notification again without providing the action, it's still going to fire. And I think even if I jump over here and get a Windows PowerShell and go toast, so you see it, I'd called a toast captured the event. So you need to be aware that this isn't just tied to that one specific toast that you're sending. It's from that point, any toast from BurntToast could potentially trigger it. So there's things you can do, which we'll see in a bit, to put if statements in there to go, hey, is it the argument that I was expecting, that sort of thing. And if you don't want, actually, let's run that one. So this is the event subscriber that it's added in. And what we can do is unregister that. And that basically just gets rid of it. So now if we were to run a new toast and click that, we now no longer get the warning coming up because we've gotten rid of that event script block. Paul, yes, that's Oh My Posh, and the theme is the Kali Linux theme. Actually, before we go further, there's one more thing that I wanted to highlight, which is there's now in version 1 a event data variable. So in order to figure out what data is actually available to you inside of the script block, I've added a event data variable parameter that allows you to export the event. There's basically a magic variable that gets created called event inside that script block, which you can't see that outside of it unless you export it. So if we go toast event, and it's also so if we were to run that, what did I do? Parameter cannot be found that matches parameter. Well, you lied to me then, didn't you? Okay, let's not do that then. There we go. So I put toast event up there. We can now go and look at toast event, which has nothing in it because I didn't actually have a button. Let's do that real quick. New BT button. And all right, let's do that. Sorry, actually, I realize you can't see my thinking face. I was just thinking about the innards. If that's not there, it might not export, but let's see. Okay, let's put that back on then. Of course it's not, because, so the reason why nothing actually came out there is because without a script block there, it's not actually executing anything. So activated action equals Pick the thing. Is this just me not spelling something right? Okay. One more try. Don't know why that's not coming through to me for me. Okay. Rather than spinning my wheels on that for a while, let's move on to the next one. So, again, this is another one of those ones that looks a little bit daunting, but to break it down, effectively what it's doing now is inside this script block. Actually, let me unregister it again, just to be sure. Inside this script block, I'm using that event magic variable that I mentioned to check, one, to make sure that the toast wasn't dismissed, and then to see what the user selected. So in this toast, there's a drop-down list, and this is basically a switch that checks which item in that list was selected. So item 1 here matches up with this ID on this selection box item. And so that selection box is going to have those. And effectively, this is going to, what happens with this one is when it triggers and you select something in the drop-down list, is going to trigger a second notification that's been customized based on what you selected. So all of that is to say, if we run this, we see, hey, we've got a new batch of GIFs. We've got our drop-down list, and let's go with Bob Ross. And if we submit that, we then get a follow-up notification. Now, if I run that one again, let me be a bit careful with, no, let's just run that one again. Yeah, sure, card. There we go. So that's basically a tongue-in-cheek way of showing, but how you can then take that input from a user, whether that's via a selection box, it could be a text box. Actually, Gilbert, you had a really good example for that, but we'll come back to it. And then based on that, you can, it's just a PowerShell script block at that point. So you can literally do anything that you want with that input. So that could be triggering another script. It could be calling an API. Here, of course, it's triggering a new GIF. What's our last one? Well, yeah, there we go. So yeah, at this point, yeah, like I said, it's PowerShell. You literally do anything you want in there now. And I mean, that effectively is the gist of the actions. There is one more thing that I want to make sure that I covered, because it's going back to displaying information, but it's a cool way of doing that, which is the use of columns. So this is really useful for when you want to display a lot of information that may have key value pairs or something like that on the notification itself, rather than linking off to something else that might have that information. So here, effectively, we're diving into some of the more component or advanced functions, rather than using the new new BurntToast notification function. But we're effectively creating text objects And then we're putting those text objects into columns and giving them weights which define how wide those columns are. And the end result for this example is that we've got some information about potentially a currently playing track on a music player or something. So here, this is called a hero. No, this isn't called a hero image. This is just what an image looks like when it's in the body of the notification. It just shows centered in the notification. So here, this is the album cover art. And then we've got the left column, which is just the labels for title, album, artist, and the information specific to that. So you could like put server name, IP address in that in the left-hand column, and then in the right-hand column have the actual information. So it's just it's a nice option for displaying dense information, if that's what you're looking to do with them. And then the last is going to be a little bit more freeform, but as Phil mentioned, it is possible to customize what Windows is displaying as the application that's displaying your notifications. So let me pull up a console here rather than trying to do it in VS Code. So there is, let's just get into the right directory. There is a new function called new BT shortcut. So a little bit of history. Behind the scenes in Windows, there's this concept of an app user model ID. I think that's the correct way those words string together. It's an ID that Windows uses to identify the applications, basically. It used to be possible to just create one of these IDs and put it in the registry, and BurntToast or notifications in general could just use that. You could say new notification, blah. Because of the new stuff that allows the events to work, that no longer works. So now the application that you're running has to intrinsically have the app ID that you want to display the text under. Now, there is some .NET methods that get really into the weeds that you can use to customize. Like one of the first things that that process runs in order for it to actually work reliably. So I scrapped trying to go that path. Instead, what I've added is this function that creates a shortcut, and then your custom, what's the word I'm looking for? Display name and icon, all of that stuff etched into it. And effectively, this will be a custom shortcut that you can use to run PowerShell. And then within that customized PowerShell instance, then it will have the correct app ID. How that looks. So new BurntToast shortcut. Let's see what options we've got. So we can give it a display name. We can give it an icon path, and it will, by default, this function will say, I'm being run from Windows PowerShell, so I'll create a Windows PowerShell shortcut. Or I'm being run from PowerShell 7, so I'll create a PowerShell 7 shortcut. If you happen to want the shortcut to always be Windows PowerShell, there's a switch there that you can use to explicitly call Windows PowerShell. If you don't want PowerShell at all, you can also specify an executable path. I wonder if I have an example of actually using this. So I don't need to. There we go. In this example, it's going to create an app ID called test ID with a display name of not PWSH. And if I run that, is that open? There we go. Why am I going blind? Where did that save it to? Let me go on a little hunt here for a minute. I think I may have just discovered a bug. I don't remember LNK, I think. That's why it didn't work. What are we at? Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was, Gilbert. So because I already had one called not PWSH, it just didn't create it for me. I didn't actually change the app ID. Okay.
Just a shortcut.
Yeah, let's get rid of that. Okay, I'm going to go for one I created earlier because I'm pretty sure I'm stepping into a. Okay. So it was hard coding them onto my desktop, which is super fun. So these ones, so let's run that one. And if I go toast, we can see I didn't specify an icon for this one, but we can see that it's using that display name on the toast now. So of course, where that becomes really useful is I've got this one that's customized for BurntToast specifically. And if I go to toast, now I've got BurntToast with the icon. And then that extends to in the Action Center, it shows there as well. And also in the settings, system notifications, it also shows here. So then I can go and say, for this one, don't play sounds, but give it top priority. This one, you will have seen it. Okay, it's not going to show up again. This one's technically a, there's something weird with this one in that is flagging through as the ISC. So I've done some really janky things on my machine to the point where if I wanted to, I now can't actually do this demo in PowerShell 7 because it's not meant to, but it's become sticky. Windows 7 has specifically stuck with my BurntToast app ID, and I cannot get rid of it. I've tried removing it from the registry, and this will be something in one of the iterations of my testing that I've almost tattooed it, which is interesting. Yes, I've got some bugs to report to myself now.
I think that's a place for people to contribute and help you out and find their
exactly. Yep. So that actually brings me to. There we go. So what's next? So as part of going to V1, I did on the repository on GitHub, I did declare issue bankruptcy. So all the history of issues that were on there that I never got to, they have all been closed with a hopefully nice message asking people, if this is still relevant to you, please open a new one, sort of thing. So my intention is going forward to solicit issues. If anyone's interested in helping triage or work on those issues, I absolutely encourage that. That would be awesome. But I'm also going to have to be more strict, careful about what I commit to coming in those issues. So I used to get involved quite a bit in helping people. They might have a weird environment where group policies blocking notifications, and I'd get dragged into, hey, I can't get notifications to display on my environment, and I'd get dragged into weeks of trying to help them diagnose group policy, which, to be frank, I don't have the bandwidth for. So I've added a disclaimer in the issue template on the repo that I can't help with repository stuff. I can't help with environment stuff anymore. That's not to say that you can't open a discussion and ask for help, and either I might be able to help or someone else in the community might be able to help. Going forward, also, I'm going to be working on documentation. So it'll be a big thing. There'll be blog posts, there'll be wikis on the GitHub repo, all of that sort of stuff. And also, the module BurntToast itself is more or less feature complete. It pretty much covers everything in the Windows notification API, or that it can. So there's some random edge things in there, which nobody used. So I removed support for them just to sort of limit how much work is needed on the thing. But there is a new, behind the scenes, there is a new method of creating notifications, which I may create a sister module around. So rather than rewriting BurntToast to use that new method, I might create an alternative one that has a different usage model. But that is a solidly might at the moment, because as ever, it's always an interesting challenge finding time for community work. So it's trying to make the most value out of that time as possible. So all that is to say, I don't really know what is next. I'm just going to take it as it comes. So
do you have any like blog articles about how to kind of imply some ways to use some toast notifications as far as like remoting is to send a remote? Is there like a good reference? I don't know, if we need to get into it tonight, but hey, somebody who's kind of thinking, how can I use this today? I think one of the first use cases I know I've seen them before is a way to, send a notification to a remote machine, or on a remote machine, send it to the first, kind of thing.
So there is, for a lot of this stuff, my logo does. Blog, I do have a tag for BurntToast where I've written a lot of stuff. And likely when I write new stuff, this is where it's going to go as well. So that one I mentioned, and most of this stuff still applies in V1 as well. The one I'm thinking of is, actually, these shoulder taps are one of the features that got removed because, like I say, nobody used them. I like a code, but I don't want it on my computer. So this is the one that I was referencing to say that you can just generate that XML and then transport it around the network that way. And it goes through how to do that. And then, you can point, for example, put that XML on a remote share somewhere that all the computers can reach it, and then say, create your scheduled task or scheduled job that just reads that XML and does whatever it needs to do. And there's some examples in that post as well, but that's more of a, not just this is how you use the function type thing. It's on my blog. And if it's not on my blog yet, if you nerd snipe me at the right time, it'll be on my blog pretty quickly. Because that's how it tends to go. So last thing is, it's not there yet, but at that URL, that's toast.click/talks, I'll be putting this slide deck up and all of the code from these demos. So if anyone wants to pick through them, they'll be available at that link. I'm not going to commit to today, but by the end of this weekend, they'll be.
That's good. I think,
Yeah.
really it's been a great demo. Go ahead.
I can't talk. Josh, I really like that. There was some really cool stuff that was in the demo. It led me. I had questions I wasn't going to ask because they were kind of questions that were just philosophical stuff. But I was often wondering, how did you come up with some of the ideas for some of these advanced toast notifications? Were they requests from users for specific situations that you had come your way, or this was just like, man, I came up with, I enabled a feature and I found all these new ways to use it?
Some of them they come up in conversations with people where it's, oh, can you do X? And I go, well, yes, you can. And I should probably write some documentation around it. So that either comes up in the form of a blog post or putting it into a demo like this. Some of them were thinking back to my my desktop support days and going, what would have been handy for me back then? Mm-hmm. So a little bit of everything.
Those graph ones were particularly interesting.
Yeah.
The moving graph ones were really interesting. Mm. It's really great stuff, and I'm glad that we could be a part of the 10-year celebration of your module release. And honestly, the other thing I was thinking about when you put the numbers up of the downloads, like I built the module 5 years ago. I think it's got like 700 downloads. 25 million. I mean, you're up there in the Doug Fink territory on useful modules in the community. That's pretty crazy. That's quite an accomplishment.
I wish I knew where. Things are moving on me. I wish I knew where more of those downloads were coming, so I could actually ask people how they're using it and what they wish they could do with it. But
and nobody even knows when you're online to buy the meat pies. That's like an inside joke going back a long time.
Yeah.
Well, that was fantastic, Josh. I mean, that was some really interesting stuff there. And like I said, congratulations on the release. That is a very well-polished module, and it just seems to work flawlessly. Definitely a must-have, I would say, for most people working in production environments. So, congratulations on the release, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for joining us for this meeting. Again, thanks so much, Josh. I want to just say thanks for all that you've done to the community. I know you say, wow, it's been so many years and like the thing, but it's been a labor of love, and you kind of hear it at that point. But also, it's like Mike said, the fact that it's been out so long, it's truly feature complete. And if there's something you needed to do, it will allow you to do it. And there's definitely documentation that's been around that will show you how to do it. But I think it's been a great product, and I certainly use it as well. So it's kind of a great thing. So thanks for what you've done.
And I should probably say thank you for putting up with me for 7 years. So not going to stop though.
No.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this at home, thanks for sticking out to the end. If you've been enjoying this presentation, we invite you to check out the other ones that we have. Our YouTube channel's got somewhere in the neighborhood of 150, 175 videos now. And we also invite you to come and join the live recordings, where you get to ask the questions and get all the behind-the-scenes fun. So if you're looking to find out more about us, you can go to rtpsug.com, or you can look us up on Meetup and look for RTPSUG, and there'll be plenty of info there on how to meet with us. And thanks again to Josh, and thanks for everyone to join us tonight. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.